we are in a transition. We all went through some hard times over the last couple of years. So it is, people are going outside more. They're going to these meetings and things like that more. So I think being out in the world will help you grow your brand more than anything. So get out as many different ways as you can. That would be my first tip to, I see authors that are out speaking every week selling boatloads of books. I have authors that sell boatloads of books. They are out in the world every week. The ones that are not out there don't sell as many. Well, it's obvious because they were in front of 300 people twice that week and you weren't. You were, like I have an office in my house in the basement, so I'm in the basement right now. I got to get out of my office and get out in the community sometime, or I call it the Bat Cave, or else I'll...
Everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It is a big, big day for me. Why, Dave? Because on my screen is one of my heroes. Mr. Dominick Domasky is here, and we're celebrating 500 episodes of a podcast that wasn't even my idea. It was Dom's idea, and he kind of gave me the little nudge to do this. So 500 reasons to fall in love with Living the Next Chapter. We have Dominick Domasky, the creator of Motivation Champs, and probably one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet in this world. Dominick Domasky, welcome as my guest for episode 500. Glad to have you here.
Well, thank you very much, and congratulations. And when you were saying all those nice things were on camera, I was looking behind myself to see if you were talking about someone other than me. So
no, it's all about you, Dom. Thank you for being here. This is great.
Can I start you off with something? I was
Let's
reading
go.
a Rick Rubin book, The Creative Act. And he says the ideas have always been out there. The world was ready for the idea. So the idea was always yours for the podcast. You had it. It was sitting there, and maybe me just whatever information you got from me on that day, but it was always yours, and it was always sitting there waiting for you just to take the bull by the horns. So congratulations.
I think that's the one thing we need in life, Dom, is somebody to believe in us, someone to see something in us that we don't, and go, hey, do you ever think about doing this? Like write a book, for example? Somebody come along like you and go, how can I help you develop your story? How can I bring that out for you and be that resource for you? So talk a little bit as we start, Dom, for somebody, this is their first time pressing play on Living the Next Chapter. They've not heard a single episode 500, their first time through the door. They haven't met you yet. Talk about Motivation Champs. What do we do?
Okay, love to. David, thank you again. 500, I'm glad to be here. I was glad to be there at the beginning. I see your evolution and your growth, and I hope to continue to grow myself as Motivation Champs. You said, what do we do? So 24/7, we put out inspiration, positivity, and smiles, and then help other people do the same. How do we do that? The main way we do that is we help people publish books. So we take them from piece of paper. They have an idea. They have a thought. They thought, I might write this, or they wrote 140,000 pages and 140,000 words and don't know what to do next. And we say, well, let us see it. Let us take it. Let us give it the care it deserves. And then let's share it to the world. So at Motivation Champs, a lot of the day you'll see is spent being on cool podcasts like this, or somebody might share that their kid got an A on a test, or they ran their first 5K, or they lost 10 pounds, or they made their favorite Christmas pie with their family. So we try to share positive vibes, positive influence. I want to live in a world where 20 years from now, people say, remember when there used to be divisive content. Remember when people didn't hold the door. Remember when people egged each other on. The world's not like that anymore. And maybe Motivation Champs, maybe the content, maybe the authors, maybe the people sharing information, maybe they can be part of that change. So that's what we facilitate, a conduit, all those things. That's what we are.
Okay, good. Amazing. So for anyone can work with you, Dom? So they can reach out to you and go, I got an idea for a book. I want to talk to you.
Absolutely. I'd love to. We specialize in inspiration, motivation. It has to do the world some greater good. You could be a coach that has a message of how to help people make more money. You could how to be more fit, how to ride a bike, or tips to fishing. It could be poetry. It could be graphic novels, children's books, just something that we say that could inspire, could uplift, could make people at the end of the day smile. And so we help those people develop, whether they've written in their stock or whether they have an idea in their head that somebody said, hey, David, this is a good idea. You should keep going with that. Well, we can give you the tips or the tools or the coaching or whatever service you may need to get to the goal you want.
Okay. I like it. All right. So we're getting close to the end of the 2024 when we record this, Tom, and 2025 is right on our doorstep. There's people who are going to maybe be, this is the year I'm going to write my book. I'm going to share my story. I've been dreaming about this. It's about time. It's time for me to do it this year. It's part of my resolutions, my goals for 2025 is to do that. For somebody that's organizing their thoughts and getting ready to sit down with somebody like you, any words of wisdom before they reach out to Motivation Champs on how they should prepare before they come and talk to you? Like, how do I get all these thoughts in my head organized enough to actually make it make sense in a conversation with you?
With anything in this world, all you can do is give it your best. So I would ask, have you given your best to making a rough draft? Have you given your best to make the draft? Have you given your best at the point where you can answer and say, I've given my best, and now I want to reach out and see what to do now. It could in whatever point you're at, but I would just, in your mind, did you give it? Yeah, I have it here and I don't know what to do next. I sit here, I wrote for a year, I wrote for a month, and now I'm stuck. I know that I just like somebody else to look at it. And so that's where I say, like, because everybody's best is different, and somebody might come with 30 years of writing experience and somebody else might have written for the first time. Right. And so it's different. And so we can help them, whatever level they're at, get to where they want to be.
Yeah. In podcasting, I have people reach out to me. The simple question they have is, Dave, I'm working on this podcast. I don't know if it's good. Can you just tell me, is this good? Now, good is a relative term. Good is relative to your opinion of good, a stranger's opinion of good. And I think for authors, the same thing, right? They write these things down. They're like, I don't even know if this is even any good. So coming to you and saying, here's what I got. Can you give me some feedback, some guardrails? What am I missing? Where can I improve? Those are some of the things you can help a young author with.
Yeah, and I let's drill into that if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you feedback. We're going to give you critique. We have your best interest in mind. I want, at the end of the day, when I first wrote a book 15 years ago, where I made every mistake there was, everyone, underdeveloped, under-edited, silly pictures on the cover, silly name, like stories I wish I wouldn't have shared. So now, 15 years later, if somebody else sold my rights, I sold my rights, and now they try to get me to buy it back sometime for like $5,000 and $10,000 to a book that I just said wasn't even any good. But I made all these mistakes, and so from a business standpoint, I don't want people to make these same mistakes. So it is helping you every step of the way. Let's look at this. Did you really want to say this about your mom? Did you really want to say this about your ex-wife? Did you really need to, you said you want to speak on stages. Is this a message that Google wants to hear? You said you wanted to speak to real estate companies, but you talked about relationships. So it really drilling down into the story. Or, okay, this is your story. Right now there's not chapters. Right now there's not, maybe it's free flowing, stream of conscious, okay? But where are we going with that? I want to know, why are you writing this book? And then we try to make sure, did this book? So there's probably just as many conversations. I had a call with a gentleman the other day, and I was asking him so many questions that I had to stop and say, I'm not trying to be rude but we don't even need to talk about book writing and all that until I know really where you're trying to go. And then once I know where you're trying to go, how could I publish your book if I don't know where you want to go? Right. Because one person could say, I want to speak on stages, but you wrote a book that isn't marketable for stages. Or you could say, I wrote a book that I want to give to my grandchildren or something like that. Well, maybe you wrote a book that uh, isn't the message that they would be able to receive. So we help you meet story meets where you want to go and really develop that.
Okay. All right. So one thing I hear a lot in podcasting as well, it's kind of a correlation between podcasting and writing, is that there's a lot of reliance, I would say, on AI right now in today's world, going into 2025. It's creating a lot of what I like to call beige content, like beige khakis, like not the most glamorous clothing. Like if you love beige, great, awesome. But it just feels like there's a lot of it. And it's all kind of the same. And you can almost hear in the content in the podcast, in the authors who write using AI, that it just kind of feels like it's a whole bunch of the same. Yeah. There's not a lot of like standout moments where personal stories are told, deep connections made with a heartfelt message from a writer or a podcaster. It just kind of feels like it's all the same.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of vanilla, just like that. I'm looking in 2025 for creative people on how they can stand out from the beige, from all the AI generated mass. I go with the AI, ask a question, take the answer and pretend it's mine. It's not yours, right? What is your hope for authors in 2025 when we are up against the ease of use of using an AI tool to be our creative mind? How do we fight against that?
Wow. I love this concept that you digging into this, and it's something that I, as a student of the written word, somebody who loves Gatsby or Catcher in the Rye or whatever, whoever, studying The Alchemist and why did they dance around these words in a certain way, or why did they share the story like this? So here's my answer, and I'm going to be direct. And if you just go on AI and ask it to create something for you, I think that's a miss. If you're saying I consider it a tool, a hammer, something that you can use once you have content. So if David took this podcast and took the transcript and put it into AI and said, take this transcript and give me 4 key points from this conversation, that is different. And, and then never, I again, is it a final product? So some people blindly write me an article about this. Well, they're not an expert in that. And then they just blindly pull things for it to write about. It's a miss. And like you said, it's vanilla. It's khaki. I wore my dad. Beige, my dad's 82, and I never really wear khaki pants. And one day I was over at his house with khaki pants on, and he said, "What are these? What do you got on there?" And I'm like, "What do you mean what I got on?" And he didn't like my khaki pants. So I guess so. David, I want to be careful here because I do believe in AI. I do believe in it making things quicker and faster. But I think you have to have the content first. So, for instance, if I had an author that sent me a bio in the first person, I could convert that bio to the third person in 10 seconds using AI. Okay. Nice. Yeah. I think that's a good use of AI. If somebody told me, here's the 20 things David shows about, I think I could make 20 posts on social media about what David shows about because I already have the core premise. I think if you don't have information to put in there, then it goes awry. And if you're talking about it writing whole books for somebody, it's nonsense. It's a miss. There's no personal connection. If somebody told you that you need to write, you got me fired up. If somebody told you you need to write 20 books in your life and you think that you're working on just numbers and you're going to put out some AI generated nonsense and that you're checking some box, it's not the right way to go. So
I picture an author that doesn't use anything AI related as kind of like a 1990 beat up Toyota. Everything's falling apart, but they're trucking down the highway, just trying to hopefully get this car to get to the destination. But that's their book. That's their dream of writing, right? As a car relation. And then somebody using AI being a McLaren, $1 billion car goes zipping past them on the highway to the finish line of writing a book in 10 seconds. And they're like, but what about the journey of writing the book?
Hey, hold on.
Like
now.
the whole thing, I'm getting there in my little crappy Toyota, just hoping I can get there. And then zoom, here comes Dom using AI, writes a book in 5 seconds. And like, where's the story? Where's the journey?
I would say it's more like being passed and you're in your Toyota and something that looks like a McLaren passes you, but it's really made out of cardboard. And a mile down the road, it's broke down and on fire because I don't believe at all that somebody should write a book. It may be an outline but that is the end of it. If you're going to put your name on that, if you are going to put your name on the cover, it should not be AI, unless you're going to credit AI. I'm against it, David.
I could go to an AI tool today and type in, give me 100 ways to make money with a podcast. And then create this book, put it out there in the world, get it on Amazon, blah, 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 and then be invited to speak on stage. And somebody say, okay, Dave, share your knowledge about how to make money with a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I can share my knowledge on how AI said to make money with your podcast.
Yeah.
But none of these are my ideas. I've never tried any of them. And now I have to speak and present my thoughts, my stories based on my book, which I didn't write. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh no, I'm creating a spot for myself. It's going to be really awkward because I'm not I don't have the intelligence to back up the words that I quote unquote wrote in my book because I didn't write them. So I love when somebody shares a deep message and a story of how they went. Like you talk about, we've had you on, it's your 5th time on the show. We've had you talk about the restaurant and your story about the restaurant and what you learned in the process of the restaurant, having your dad sit in the front of the restaurant to look like there's somebody there actually eating when things were rough. AI doesn't have that reference to write a story like that. Only you have that story. So that's the thing I would love for an author to think about is, yes, AI is a great tool, but AI won't capture those memories and those moments only with the way you can. Yep. That's the one thing I'd love for authors to leverage is make sure that your story is real. That's the thing I want to hear on stage. That's what I want to hear as a guest on a podcast. Talk about that restaurant scene and put me in the restaurant. I want to feel like I'm there. Again, AI is going to have a hard time at this point doing that. But you, as an author, that's your story. And no one else can compete with that.
Yeah. Great, David. I could go silent here because you nailed it.
Okay. All right. So I've got a few questions I want to throw at you. In your view, what role does personal experience play in creating a compelling narrative that resonates with readers in 2025? What's our role?
It's everything. What is your role in creating what was it? What kind of narrative?
What is your role and personal experience play in creating a compelling narrative for your story?
It's everything to me. Yeah. You shared experience that it doesn't have to be that you went through everything, but you could have seen it, you could have read about it, you could have learned about it, you could have watched it, you could have seen a friend or a sister, you could have developed it from that point. But there has to be some component of it's the root. How about that? It's the seed. It's the mustard seed that that will grow exponentially. Without that, there's no base. There's no roots. You're all limbs and no roots.
Okay, I like that. What about what do you see in 2025 for publishing, from your side of the mic in your world as a publisher and as a supporter of authors? What do you see coming in 2025? We look back over the years, many years ago, you had to be with one of the top 5 to get your book even into a store or on a shelf. And now there's a lot of tools that you can do your own way. There's a lot of ways to get your book into the world now that we didn't have like even 20 years ago. So 2025, anything you're looking forward to or you're curious about from
Okay.
from that perspective?
I 100% have a belief that personal brand, the hustle, being out there doing it is the most important thing. So what do I mean by that? I'm honored to be on David's show today. I am meeting new people today. Hello there. Pleased to meet you. I'm Dominick. Hope I'm doing all right. I'm meeting new people. I believe that if you're not out in the world meeting new people, whether that's a networking group, whether that's a business luncheon, whether that's going to somewhere with new friends, out for drinks with two new people, you meet new people. The people that aren't doing that, number one, I think will get left behind. There's only so much. My friend Julie Loken, who she talks about in real life a lot, IRL, in real life. So I love all the social media. But there is also in real life. So as the world not changes back, but we are in a transition. We all went through some hard times over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So people are going outside more. They're going to these meetings and things like that more. So I think being out in the world will help you grow your brand more than anything. So get out as many different ways as you can. That would be my first tip to. I see authors that are out speaking every week selling boatloads of books. I have authors that sell boatloads of books. They are out in the world every week.
Yeah.
The ones that are not out there don't sell as many. Well, it's obvious because they were in front of 300 people twice that week, and you weren't. You were, like I have an office in my house in the basement, so I'm in the basement right now. I got to get out of my office and get out in the community sometime.
Yeah.
Or I call it the bat cave, or else I'll be like what animal has they can't open their eyes when it's sunny out? You can't be like that.
Or like a vampire. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's a very popular thing to write about. Okay, so what about? I know you do. You mentioned have authors that get on stage. That's one great way to do that. What other things can we do when we write our book? One of the comments I get from authors is they feel like, and no shade against publishers, but they feel like they get all this hand-holding through the process of writing. They get to a finished book. They get the box of book, arrive on their doorstep.
Yeah.
And then it feels like they're kind of on their own
Yeah.
at that stage to do the promotion, maybe get on podcast, create a website, get out speaking, do book signings, but they feel like they're kind of creating this on their own. And
Yeah.
some of them don't have the PR skills
Yeah.
to self-promote. And they feel a little bit like they're just trying to figure it out. So from your
Yeah.
perspective, I have a new book. It's coming out in 2025. I'm ready to talk about it. What should be my long-term goal as far as promoting my book? Any things that you've seen work with your authors that we could maybe leverage?
The number one thing is, like we talked about me having these conversations, why are you doing it? Why did you write this book? Understanding that, whatever that reason is, okay, I wanted to help. I battled through domestic abuse. I want to help one more person. I had a rough upbringing and with my parents, and now I'm going to be the best mother or father I can be. And I want to share that message so other parents hurting. I think if your message is true, if your reason, if the why, all those, the cliche type thing, if it is true, if it's on, and if you can stick to that message. So what so many people get caught up in is comparison. Oh, I want to be bestseller day one, and then, okay, then what? Well, if you really did want to help one person, so no matter what, every day, did you help one person? Did you help 2 people? Did you help 10 people? Then you won. If you want, I'm stuck in this path of somebody that jumps into this world, and sometimes you'll get straight talk from me. Somebody that jumps into this world, that from an outside world, the writing world, what is it going to take? It's going to take the same effort that made you successful anywhere else you've ever been successful in your
Right.
life. So let me be clear that sometimes, I have friends that got on Oprah. Okay, it can happen. Those kind of things can happen. But it takes consistency. If you're not out there sharing your message daily, consistently, on message, on brand, it's not going to happen. So the people to that person if you don't put in the work. If you don't show up like a professional every day, people aren't going to treat you that way. They're not going to find you. So you have to show up every day. And sure, the publisher, let's say me, I can support anybody. I can, people that are out there doing it. It's so easy to support people that are out there doing it. And then it's a spider web. It's a snowball. The snowball moves. But if somebody says, I did it, and now I don't want, so you ask for tips. Well, you could go to consignment shops. You could go to boutique stores. You could go to small hotels. You could go to networking groups. You could go on podcasts. You could write to any city that you've ever lived in and try to get in their local newspaper. You could contact any morning show in your community and tell them about your book. There's so many things that you could post. You could do lives. You could host your own podcast. You could do video. But if you're, I'm not going to do that. And what I hear from a lot of people is, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
That's not for me. I don't want to. You could send messages on like, how many of you have got hit up on social media? You could send messages. You could. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to do it. You just have to do it. Now, support. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are unsupportive out there. A lot of publishers that are going to leave you and ditch you and take your money and be gone halfway through the process, not have plans, not be there to connect you with nice guys like David or get you on shows. But there are people, David, that want it all, but they're not willing to put that same effort in that got them I was so successful at this. Why? Some skills are transferable. Some skills are transferable.
Yeah.
You were a good speaker here. You presented here. You were in sales and you had these connections. Okay, that's going to help you, but you have to get out and do the work. So sorry if that's not what somebody wanted to hear. I told you I was going to be direct.
I had one author on, Dom. They said they went to a book thing and they were featured in front of a bunch of authors, and they have a fantasy book they wrote about, and they had like really poor response. They're like, people didn't come up to the table, nobody was interested in their book, and they're like, well, they could have given up right there and went, well, I guess doing book signings and going out to book things aren't my thing. They decided to go to a Comic-Con and did the exact same table, same books at a Comic-Con, a fantasy book. They had people lined up at the table to buy the book because it was the right audience.
Yeah,
And
right place, right time, right message.
The author did, instead of talking mostly about their book, they talked about the people coming up to the table and their outfits at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I know that character. I know that. And people love that interaction, that you recognized how I'm dressed at this Comic-Con and that you took notice of my costume and my thing, right? They're like, oh my gosh, they're best friends. Just like that. They sold more books by being in the right spot with the right people, and not giving up. So if you have a bad experience one place, maybe that's not your people. Maybe you're just in the wrong location. Right book, wrong location. Maybe.
So I've done county fairs, I've done business groups, I've done home shows, I've done summer festivals, done them all, sit and learned, and I've struck out a lot of times. I've sold a lot of books at them too. I've had a home show where I had a stage spot where I got up on the stage and people were eating hot dogs and there was nobody there except the people eating. But you learn from it, you get better, and then realize, hey, next time I speak, there might be people walking in and out. How am I going to handle these kind of things? Would I get off the stage? No. I'll talk to them about their hot sausages and whatever they're eating that day and learn. And okay, I made 4 new friends. I'll tell you, I did a book signing at a consignment shop one time, and I'm sitting at the consignment shop and selling a couple books, meeting some people, nice people, talking to the people that go by. Hey, have a good day. What are you up to? That kind of thing. I met somebody from a huge university, and we started talking. We had a good conversation, and they later paid me more than I ever got paid to speak. And they simulcasted it to the West Coast. They had a I'm in the East Coast. They had a West Coast campus. They simulcasted it there at the same time, and it was so neat. When I walked around the room and stepped on the certain part of the floor, it was so advanced that the cameras moved, and then a different side of the room would be filming me. And it was all because I could have left. I could have never went back after the county fair or the home show when I was by myself while people were eating. I could have not taken the stage. And then I could have not went to the consignment shop because, well, I need to have all my books in Barnes and Noble. And well, I sold a lot of, I just sold a book the other day at a consignment shop. Somebody brought a check to my house. I said, hey, thank you very much. So it happens. Don't be afraid. So that's what I got.
All right. So again, Dom, you've been here now five episodes. Yeah, it's amazing to have you back every 100 episodes. I'm like, it feels like time goes by so fast between 100 episodes. So I'm sure we're going to have you back in 2025 for episode 600. So we'll just keep plugging away here. You're my goal every 100. I can't wait to have time with Dom Domasky. So Dom, as we go out, I've shared a podcast episode on my Dad Space podcast, and it was around a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. The quote is, "Do what you can with what you have where you are." Do what you can with what you have where you are. Mm-hmm. Can you relate that to authors? Do what you can with what you have where you are. How would you wrap up with that?
I like that. And for authors, as we talked about earlier, you do the best you can. So somebody might have a better computer system than you. Somebody might have a database that you don't have. They might have a service that you don't have right now. You do your best. And somebody might be able to, I call it jump the line. You could jump the line because of finances. You could jump the line because of experience. You could jump the line for all these reasons. You put in the work, put in the time, just keep getting better. Go back and edit it again. Go back and edit it again. Show one of your friends, show another friend, show another friend. Take their feedback, the people that love you. Don't let it hurt you, because here's one thing. David, all our loved ones love us, they care for us, and they love us just like we are right now. Sometimes they don't want us to get hurt. So when they see us growing into this beautiful flower or butterfly that we are meant to be, sometimes along the way, they don't know. They didn't know, well, David's going to have 500 episodes someday. This person's going to have a best-selling book over there. They can't even see it because they weren't there. They just loved you as you were. So if you get feedback that isn't the feedback that you wanted, don't give up. Listen and say, hey, I wonder why they said what they said, and take it, understanding that's their thoughts on it, and keep moving forward. There may be some merit. People give me stuff all the time that, as after writing 15 years now, 20 years, whatever it is, all the time, people will say, oh, why'd you do that? Or why didn't you add that? And that's a good idea. Where at first you might say, oh, don't touch my stuff. This is perfect as is. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It can be made better. So just give it your best and keep moving forward.
I like it. And that whole part about where you are as the last part of that quote, I've heard authors say, I would have shared my story sooner, but I didn't feel like I was where I wanted to be as an author. Yeah. I didn't feel like I was seasoned enough, or I haven't done it long enough. Mm-hmm. There are people that are willing and want to follow your journey as an author. Yeah. Take them on the journey with you. Like, I get on your socials and say, I'm thinking about writing a book. If you want to follow me as I write the book, here's my journey. And you can follow me on those days when I'm doing well and the days where I'm struggling. But at the end of it, I've followed you through the whole path of writing this book, and I'm ready to support you when that book comes out because I've seen the journey to get there. We're so happy to share the results, very hesitant to share the journey because we don't want to show our struggles. We only want to show our success, right? Mm-hmm. So let people see behind the curtain, right? It's the whole Wizard of Oz thing.
Yeah.
Don't look behind the curtain. Just focus on what's happening out there. But getting behind the curtain, I think, is a great way to bring your audience with you, and to also then to show other people that you're not perfect, you're struggling, you're doing the thing, but people then can feel that it's okay for them to struggle and do the thing, because we always just compare ourselves to somebody's Instagram reel or their highlights while we're struggling in our day-to-day. So I love it when people take me on the journey. You do that all the time. That's why I really love having you here, having you as a friend in my circle. And for those that are listening, if you're looking for somebody that's true of heart, somebody who really cares about people in their lives, someone who puts you first, it's Dominick Domasky, Motivation Champs. I can tell you 100%. This man will never put you off. This man will never ignore your emails. This man will always reach out and will always give you support. So even if you just want to have a conversation with somebody and get your head straight about your path, reach out to Dominick Domasky, Motivation Champs. Right, Dom?
Yeah, I'd be honored, man. And you said it so well, so eloquently. And you are such a great resource to all these authors, all these people with a message to share. They need you, David. They need you. We need 1,000 out of you. So please don't stop. There's so many people that you're giving hope to. You're giving them a space, a safe platform to share their message and encouraging them and guiding them. Well done, my friend. Well done.
So as an author listening, as 2025 is right ahead of you, this is the year. This is the year to finally stop putting it off. You have an idea. It's time to move forward with that. And if you need somebody in your corner who can help motivate you, you can have the champ of all champs in motivation. Dominick Domasky is there to help motivate you. So Dom, thank you so much for being part of the 500 episodes. And here's to the next 500. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.